We're talking about financials, paying yourself, and paying the bills. So there's a lot to consider when you become an entrepreneur. And one of the most important things is really money, right? Financials are incredibly important to consider when you're going out on your own, whether it's a side hustle or you're going all in on that big idea. From budgeting, taxes, hiring employees, paying yourself, business expenses, things can get complicated pretty quickly. So, luckily, we've got an incredible panel here that's going to be diving into some of those big questions. And I'm thrilled to have Patrick Brown here to lead this conversation with us. Patrick created financial literacy for student athletes to stay at the forefront of the industry and support student athletes in educating themselves about the financial world. He's an investment advisor at Edmonds Duncan Investment Advisors in Lawrence, Kansas, and has over a decade of experience in financial planning. He's been a financial advisor for over 20 years. He also played college football for the University of Kansas, where he was a team captain, and he went on to play in the CFL for the Calgary Stampeders. And we have some incredible folks joining Patrick in this conversation. Guys, go ahead and pop your cameras on here. We have Chrissy Sanders, real estate entrepreneur, Taryn Bushrod, money mindset coach and creator of the Money Playbook, and Matt Maurizio, a financial advisor at Backbone. So thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate each of you for being a part of this conversation. And Patrick, I'll turn it over to you to get us kicked off here.
Well, thank you very much. I have to say right up front, Danielle and her team have been absolutely great in helping us with this platform. So, kudos to you for this great platform. So listen, if we can just kind of go by, and I know you already introduced us already, but if you can kind of go by, guys, and kind of introduce yourselves, and we'll start from there. So Matt, I guess we'll go with you first.
Sure. All right. I'm pumped that we get to kick this day 2 summit off. So that's really fun. We'll try to bring the energy. My name is Matt Maurizio, financial advisor at a company called Beck Bodie out of Boston. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. My 6 kids and my wife and I, we recently relocated from the Boston area down here. Many moons ago, I played minor league baseball, former athlete, once an athlete, kind of always an athlete. I played in the Royals farm system as a catcher, as a pitcher, did that for 5 seasons total. Didn't work out no matter which direction I faced on the baseball diamond. So here I am now, but I'm excited because a lot of parallels between athletics and entrepreneurship, athletics and finance can be gleaned. And so that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis, is help people make fun, mostly athletes, former athletes, make sense of their finances, understand what role they play in their life and in their business.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Chrissy.
Hey guys, so a little bit about me. So I'm a real estate entrepreneur. So basically I do most of the finance side. So got into sports. I started as a marketing director for BMW. Then from there, I started my own sports agency, helping guys with endorsement deals and girls. And honestly, I just felt like that wasn't what people needed most. I felt like there's a level of always trying to shield athletes from actually understanding business, understanding their brand, understanding that. And then once they were done playing, it would be this huge drop off, because it's like, they're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So it's
right.
Like, because, they've been like shielded by their financial advisor, all of that. So basically what I do on the finance side is show them exactly how to acquire real estate, structure deals. So basically real estate is cash flow, essentially. Cash flow is king. And that's basically what we do.
Absolutely. So next up we have Taryn.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taryn Bushrod. I have to say I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I currently reside in DC. So if you hear a little of the accents, for those of you who know what I'm referring to, that's why. I'm a money mindset coach, founder of the Money Playbook, where we help athletes understand their relationship with money and spending habits.
Awesome. So it's great to again share the virtual stage with you guys. So I guess kind of starting off the bat, if we can kind of talk about just understanding your money from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I guess the expenses for a business, if you can kind of go by and just kind of talk about your thoughts on that. So just, again, money, business, how it kind of coincides with entrepreneurship. I guess we'll go with, I said it's an open question, but Chrissy, maybe you want to start off?
So, I mean, when it comes down to starting a business, like people really have to understand everything. So one of the first things that I always recommend people do is really build a team, right? So like the last thing you want to do is try to be an expert at every single portion of the business, because at that point you are not only going to stress yourself out and end up in burnout, but you're also going to probably fail miserably because you don't know everything. So it's like you want to make sure that you have like the proper accountant, the proper marketing person. I wouldn't go out and get an agency or anything like that. You also want to look at maybe structuring your company in a way that if you don't have the money to pay people or to pay a board, you might want to start looking at giving out a little bit of equity, early on. So it's like these are the people that you trust the most and that are going to ride with you the most, that you don't have to worry about going, out on their own, and doing something. But just really kind of getting that core team in place, and then also compensate them in some form of equity to kind of keep the cash flow out the door to a minimum right now until you start creating revenue. So that's like kind of the higher level. And then also understanding marketing acquisition costs. So basically client acquisition costs. A lot of people are always like, oh, I'm gonna, go out and sponsor every little league team. And, I used to play for the Braves, so let me go give their foundation something in hopes of, doing whatever. But like, truth be told, it's like, what is the true ROI that you're getting back from that? So truly understanding how much it takes you to acquire a client, your true expenses and stuff of that. So we deal with that as well.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to kind of piggyback on that?
I'll just add, Chrissy, you use the word hope, which is such a true word for a lot of folks jumping into the business, even in investing, but jumping into entrepreneurship. Hope is not a strategy. I hope people understand that. Like, hope cannot be your strategy. You will, like, I look at entrepreneurship as like athletics round 2. You for me personally, I set my goals as high as I could possibly set them. I set a goal to play in the MLB. I didn't make it there, but that took 20 years from a 6-year-old boy to finally leaving the game at 26 or 27. And then round 2 is entrepreneurship. So I set a really high goal, but that's going to take, from day one, sales is going to be the lifeblood of a business. Yeah. And if you're busy worrying about the brand and the image and what you look like in the community and who you're partnering with and sponsoring, like you're saying, Chrissy, and just hoping the business comes in the door, you're going to run out of money before you can even do anything with this. So it's like the first day of whatever team you played on. Mm-hmm. It's like that 2.0. It's time to grind again. And it's time to get scrappy and figure it out. Only hire when you absolutely are busting at the seams, and recognize like your first goal probably took 15 to 20 years. This goal isn't going to be accomplished in 2. You're going to have to put in a lot of work again, but that's the beauty of it. It's a lot of fun and it can kind of go in any direction you want to take it. That's why you're an entrepreneur and you're not in a 9-to-5.
So you kind of touched on something I think is pretty interesting. So, athletes in general, you grind to accomplish a certain goal. And so with business, I agree with you, what you said before, that, business is very similar to being an athlete, but some guys may not see it that way. And so I guess from an emotional standpoint, emotional dealing with money, emotional dealing with business, how would you guys say that plays a part? And, how do you deal with it from an emotional part?
You really have to understand. Did you want to go, Taryn? I see.
Yeah.
Taryn's the money mindset.
I was going to say it's definitely a major factor. Going back to the business expense and how it ties into the emotion, I would say your biggest business expense is your mind, your mindset, your mental capacity, your ability to make the tough decisions. Can you recognize when it's time to pivot and not be so stuck or trapped to your original idea and vision, where you totally avoid making the transition when you know that's the thing that's going to pay the bills? In terms of emotional toll, now you're looking at things of, am I a failure because what I initially set out to do, it's not what's coming to life. I have to change my whole business model. And those are certain things that you have to really wrap your head around and say, hey, am I in a position to make the tough mental decisions to forecast and bring to fruition whatever the next phase of my business is going to be? Can I lead a team of individuals when it's time to hire people? Those are all the things that you have to take into consideration, and definitely keeping your mental health in check, getting your sleep, figuring out, do you subscribe to, I can sleep when I'm dead, or do you subscribe to, yes, you need adequate sleep in order to have peak performance? So those are some of the things that I think people need to consider.
So, staying with the emotional side of things, and again, depending on what sport you played and when you played the sport, there are times when you're always taught as an athlete to push through, push through the pain, fight through the pain. And as times have changed, I mean, the mental health of athletes are is more important than ever now. And so I guess going back to the business standpoint, is that something that you guys see, or is it something that you don't see, or what would you say around that topic? Just the mental health of our athletes or student athletes.
I personally, I'll just say quickly, Chrissy, and I want to hear from you too. I have seen at the elite levels of both entrepreneurship and athletics that the biggest separator is, for me, what I've seen, the mental side of that sport. If we want to call entrepreneurship a sport, it's the people, like you were saying, Taryn, that can pivot if they need to pivot, not get emotionally attached to something, and be okay with revamping and redoing because they recognize a bigger picture ahead. But the mental side of the game, I'm going to use game as like entrepreneurship and your sport. The mental side of the game very much has to do with your emotional health, but it also has to do with understanding how to use your mind as a weapon and visualize success and attract success. I've heard it said where you have 75,000 thoughts in a day and 91% of them are the same every day. So you got a 9% of your thoughts where you can control, and that 9% you've got to take over and take control of to really understand what direction your life is going, because your mind gravitates toward what it's most accustomed to. So if you have these negative thoughts in a replay loop in your head, like I'm never going to make it, this business is never going to take off, well, you're right. You're not going to make it, because you're the 9% of your thoughts that you can control are totally negative. And I saw it as an athlete, and I can actually live that firsthand. Toward the end of my career, I became a backup catcher. I played one every 6-7 days. For those of you that are not baseball fans, that's not a path to the big leagues. You want to be a starter. You don't want to play one every 7 days. Right. And when I saw my name in the lineup, I should have been super pumped, but instead I had a pit in my stomach thinking like, oh, crap, because I knew how hard it was to get out there and play. But more importantly, I mentally lost. I only know that in hindsight. You asked me at the moment, I was ready. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to win. But in hindsight, I was like, man, I didn't understand how to connect my mind with my heart, because they're all one and the same. If you're doing it right, your emotional health and your mental health are intertwined, and those together lead you to where you're trying to go. And I was out of whack there. So I think, Taryn, what you're saying, you've got to get mentally and emotionally in check before you can ever hope to succeed in athletics or entrepreneurship.
Yeah. I don't know, Chris, did you want to jump in on that? I thought maybe you were going to say something initially, or.
Yeah, I also think that people need to have the real honest conversation with themselves and understand when you're attacking an endeavor like business. Just like if you go have a baby, nobody's going to love your kid more than you. It's like, and stop expecting people to love your child more than you. Stop expecting people to be on the same level of passion, focus, everything like that as you. That's just going to be a necessary evil of entrepreneurship. Understand that, just like Matt, you were saying about with the career, there's going to be sacrifices. I think a lot of people don't really realize, they always talk about mental health, but they don't talk about just the normal habits that we do just as human beings that put our mental health at risk. Like if you're growing a company, maybe you need to, not drink alcohol for a while. People don't realize stuff like that. Maybe you need to work out every single day. Maybe start looking at your life and some of the things that you're doing. If you would go and protect your sport like a baby, if you won't, look at social media, you won't look at whatever, for X amount of time while you're in the playoffs, why would you think that you could go run a business and still just go do you like it's some regular day?
Preach.
And then the second thing would be like, you know, you have to actually be married to the results, not the path. Like a lot of people are like so married to, I mean, just like if you go out there and you want to, you know, go play basketball, if you were playing basketball, what sense would it make in your mind to literally say, I'm only going to win if I shoot 3-pointers? And like, it doesn't matter if the basket's wide open, I'm going to just shoot 3-pointers. Right. If it's clearly not that. And you have to be married to results, not the path. So if that means that you have to adjust, constantly look at data. If you look at all of the top companies, look at what they started doing and what they are doing now. And a lot of times it's drastically different. You know, so many companies thought they were one type of company, but they ended up something else. Look at Amazon, look at Blackstone. It's a private equity company. Like people thought they were initially had this grand idea. The marketplace says psych, and then you got to adjust accordingly. So, you know, and you just got to be prepared for that.
Married to the result. I like that. I like that a lot. You know, I probably should have asked this earlier. With each of you, what made you want to become an entrepreneur? We'll start with ladies first.
Go ahead, Taryn. We've been chatting a lot, me and Matt.
Get it, Taryn.
For me, it became the time and financial freedom. I hit a rough patch at my, call it first corporate job. I was working for the government, encountered some health challenges, and then from there just became a very toxic workplace from overnight, from me saying, hey, you know, I will always be a business owner. I'll just have my 5 to 9 business and do things on the weekend. But once that environment shifted, my mindset shifted and said, hey, no, wait, in order to protect my peace and my future, I need to figure out a way to do this on my own and really sustain myself. So that really is what triggered me, my mental health and wanting to have the financial freedom, wanting to be able to go places and do things without asking anyone else's permission.
Awesome. Awesome. Chrissy, what about you?
So for me, it was like, it kind of went back to my childhood, right? So like, you know, I went to college to stop being homeless. Like my dad was killed when I was a kid. And one thing that I just didn't like was seeing my mother in a vulnerable place. And so what I knew I wanted was indestructible wealth, if that makes sense. So I knew I was like, you know, and I knew I wouldn't get it if I just had a job. Like at first, like the 16-year-old me, when all this stuff was happening, was like, okay, just go make $100,000. And then when I was like 21, I made $100,000. And then I was like, this isn't enough. You know what I mean? And I got nervous, you know what I mean? And it's like, and so then at that point, I'm like, okay, how can I make sure like my mother, I started a retirement account for my mom because she didn't have one. You know, again, just some circumstances. I wanted indestructible wealth. I wanted something that would last forever. You know, and if I got hit by a bus, would keep going. So that's what made me, you know.
Gotcha. Matt, what about yourself?
Yeah, you know, when I was a kid chasing that MLB dream, I used to think I was a bit of a maverick and a little weird because I was walking a path that like everybody kind of jokingly, lovingly, but maybe not so lovingly made jokes about, like, why aren't you coming out, or why are you packing that food instead of grabbing a candy bar like the rest of us at the movies and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I realized that having worked with and played around enough athletes, both on and off the field, I learned that if you have, and it's not exclusive to athletes, it's what I've learned is a high performer type mindset. You recognize that like you're going to have to walk a path that no one else is really willing to walk. If you want to live a life that most people can't live. And I've always been wired that way, so that when I got done playing and had a baby and needed work immediately, I got into a finance sales role, and it was for a staffing firm. And I pretty quickly, in a few years, made it to the top, the cream of the crop of that company. And it was $1 billion publicly traded firm. And I had been on their top performer trips. And I remember distinctly sitting in Cabo on an all expenses paid trip, thinking to myself, gosh, I don't want anybody's life that's here. And that's not a good thing, because theoretically, like, this is the best it gets, because I'm kind of there. And I also have always had a little bit of an issue with doing things the way it's always been done, just for the doing it that way's sake. And corporate America is riddled with that.
Yeah.
I had a hard time, kind of bucked a lot of heads in that world. I finally had an opportunity to go out and build my own practice, and I said, man, I got to go do this. If I want to do something my way, it's the only way to do it is to build it myself.
I hear you. Well, that's good. So in all of your paths to entrepreneurship, what are some of the regrets? What do you wish, you could tell a 10 years ago yourself that would benefit you now, if you could go back in time? Start with you, Matt.
Wow. I don't think that I can use. I don't think I can say I regret it.
Learning opportunities. How about that?
There's plenty of them. I think that's the cool part. I think that in hindsight, I probably would have been in my relationship with my wife. So backing up, as a financial advisor, you would think that I would probably have to give sound financial advice, which I do, I promise. But I also recognize that becoming an entrepreneur is almost anything but sound financially to start most of the time. And I have been, I had to figure out how to come up with over 6 figures of bad debt, like credit card debt and stuff, just to keep food on the table for 5 kids at the time, 6 now, as I was building a practice years ago. And that was really hard on my relationship. And I wasn't prepared for that on my own. That would have been fine, because I'm fine sleeping on the floor and figuring out doing what I got to do. But when a wife and children are involved, and as the sole provider throughout that entire journey, I think I would have probably intentionally sought out some counsel on how to manage that when it happens. Not like how to avoid that, because that's going to happen, but in a relationship and emotionally on my own, how do I have the strength, and what tools or what type of counsel, or just speaking like therapy or whatever it has to be, to just be able to make it through that time and come out healthier. Thank God we're healthier through that journey. That test has made us stronger, but that was a really difficult time that if I had proactively understood really how tough it would be, I probably would have hired some coaches, or at least like sought them out and did anything because at the time I don't have money to hire. I'm going to just do anything for free. I'll, sweep their floors if they'll talk to me.
Right. Taryn, what about yourself?
Well, I am still an employee. So I'm not a full-time entrepreneur. What I will say in terms of this journey is I would have believed much bigger, much sooner. I think that I might not be a full-time employee, and I would be a full-time entrepreneur had I had a different belief system early on.
Okay. Chrissy?
I would probably say asking for help. I think that was one of the biggest things for me. And I think that, the women that are here, and especially the Black women, Taryn can probably relate. It's like, I think I kind of had a little bit of PTSD from corporate America, because anytime you ask for help in a predominantly white space, it's usually an indictment of your competency, versus your other peers can ask for help or a million different things, and they're rewarded with a team. So like, at that point, it made me nervous when I started on my own to really ask for help, get the mentorship that I needed and things like that. And I ended up making a lot of mistakes, which I'm grateful for, because thank God I learned quickly from my mistakes. I'm not like a keep on hitting your head against the wall type of person. But, I would have felt comfortable asking for help sooner. Now I don't care if I look like an idiot. Like, I try not, I try to be the dumbest person in the room and the broken, because at that point you're in the wrong room if you're the smartest and the richest. So.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. From a success standpoint, money's good, right? We all like money and a lot of it. But I guess, how would you measure yourselves for success within your own path of being an entrepreneur? Is it solely money, or do you have other measurements that you quantify that you're successful? We'll start with Chrissy first.
Yeah, honestly, I live by, a lot of people have it, but I'm gonna just go with Sean Whalen here. Like, I'm a big Sean Whalen person. I don't know if you guys know the lion versus sheep or something like that. But I mean, big patriotic chick, but like, but I'm big. Yeah, I know. I saw the American flag, Matt. I was like, it's my guy. But anyway, but it's like when he talks about getting your house in order, and he talks about your core four, and it's like, you know, your faith, your finances, your family, and your fitness. That's to me is success. Like, you know, if I'm sitting over here being a deadbeat, you know, at home as a daughter, or, you know, as, you know, whatever, I'm single, but at the end of the day, if I had somebody, then if I was a deadbeat, but I'm killing in that business, or I'm, you know, overweight, struggling to button my jeans, then at that point, that's not a success, you know? So it's like, because truth be told, if your spirituality and your fitness aren't in order, your family, you're, you know, you're just very close to crumbling, whether you realize that or not. So.
No, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Taryn, what about yourself?
Your level of impact. How many people have you helped? How many lives can you change? And do you have the courage to get up and keep going and do it over and over again?
Okay. Matt, what about yourself?
I mean, these ladies answered it for me. This unbelievable.
Right.
I have I have my own core values that I live by, and the first one is faith, family, fitness, and finance. And keep them in that order too, because that order keeps the rest of my life. It keeps my house in order, as Sean Whalen and Christy, as you said, keeps me in check. When the first comes out of whack, the second and third, it's like a trickle down effect. And then for me, it's not about the money, and it's totally about the money at the same time.
Right.
Because the money is the engine for everything we're trying to accomplish, at least in my family, we're trying to accomplish in terms of, like you said, Taryn, impact. You can't even run a church or a nonprofit without finances. So you need the money.
Right.
And, you know, as the Bible would say, it's not money that's the root of all evil. It's the love of money. So as long as I keep my faith, family, fitness, and then finances in check in that order, and I recognize that the money will be the fuel for the fire to go and impact lives positively, then that to me is successful, because the more I make, the more lives I can touch.
That's true. True.
And if you don't mind me adding something, and I think Matt can agree, like, I would challenge anybody in this room that's in this thing to, like, these core values matter so much that if you ever just pulled an inventory of your bank account, like, and then look at, just remember each month and where you were mentally, spiritually, physically, all of that, and then look at where your bank account was and see where it was the highest and when it was the lowest, and then I can guarantee you will see the correlation. It matters.
I like that. No,
it's just data.
Yeah, numbers.
So.
It's all about the numbers. You know, you guys probably touched on this in some way or shape, form, or fashion, but inspiration. What would you say inspires you, or who would you say inspires you to either be a better you or just to be a better entrepreneur? Whether it's you know, someone that you listen to on a podcast, whether it's someone that you watch, or what have you. Taryn, we'll start with you, or if there's anyone like that springs out at you.
Not particularly.
Okay.
I get my inspiration from a number of different factors: my peers, some of my mentors, spiritual advisors, my favorite authors. I'll tell you this: my favorite book is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. I probably read it once a year. I'm always taking away another thing or seeing, did I really meet all of the objectives that's in that book? So I read a lot, so I'm constantly pulling things and kind of aggregating it together to better my life.
Awesome. Matt, what about yourself?
Well, I think the first one, and this is not me imposing any faith or anything, but as a Christian, that I think if I'm not doing anything that's at least biblically rooted, then I need to go back and double check on that. And as far as entrepreneurship and business growing, man, there's a few people that I follow closely. And I will say that if anybody's looking for information this day and age, there's no excuse. It's on you if you can't find it. We live in the best time ever to have mentors that don't even know you exist, but it doesn't matter. If you can get past the fact that your mentor isn't your best friend that you call every other week, and realize, like, there are these people out there pouring their entire lives worth of work on social media and on podcasts for free,
Yep.
then the world kind of opens up for you. So there's a few people. I'm part of a entrepreneurial organization called the Arte Syndicate, founded by Ed Milet, Andy Frisella. These two are multiple 9-figure net worth and business owners, still practicing business, teaching what they've learned. So that's been a really cool source of understanding of not just how to start it, but man, when I'm that big, how's it going to look and what can I expect then? Kind of like what I said earlier, if I knew how hard it was going to be, maybe I can have a coach in advance on relationals and how to deal with that time. Sure. That's kind of what that is for business. And then one other guy that's just had a major role in my life, David Nurse. He's wrote a book called Pivot and Go, and he's got a new book coming out too that I recommend people pre-order. But those three guys have probably made the most impact in my life, professionally and even personally too, because they've reshaped my entire mindset on how to look at life.
Gotcha. Chrissy, what about yourself?
So personally, I'd probably say it's like the people closest to me who actually believed in me, right? So I think it's like disrespectful to not show up, like specifically my team, right? So I look at my partner, Rick, believed in me, my team, John, Ben, Moore, Maya, all of them, when how it works, when you are actually a company, you're building a startup, it's like everybody's income and revenue, personal revenue is tied to somebody else's. So those people are believing me, and me specifically, my ops team, because it's like, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, it affects them. So that is a major driver for me. I really always tell people, think about when you drop the ball, who else that it trickles down to. So that's like a big thing for me. And then professionally, I'm in a mastermind as well. It's called Bulletproof Sales. It's founded by Steve Morris. He's a real estate entrepreneur. So those guys, Tim Broads, what else? Sean Whalen, guys like that, Mark Evans, deal makers. So these are guys who are essentially doing 9-10 figures in real estate transactions, and I would like to be there and buy more time. So
that's good. You guys are definitely dropping some nuggets. I'm taking my little notes.
What about you?
To read.
You asked all the good questions, Patrick, but I don't get to hear any of your answers. What about you?
Right. It's all about you guys. No, from an inspiration standpoint, very similar to kind of what you guys have mentioned. I have a lot of mentors that I met along the way. A lot of mentors I met through football. Guys who've kind of been there, done that before me, and I pay attention and I try to ask as many dumb questions as I possibly can. Christy kind of hit on the head before. I mean, I forget how you phrased it, but I always want to continue to ask questions, and I'm always trying to learn more as much as possible. So, so I think my family, is obviously an inspiration, just trying to look good for my family. So family isn't certainly important with me. So, I guess, again, kind of looking back at the whole athlete thing and creating habits, what does a typical day look like for you guys? Everything from whether it's marketing, budgeting, meeting with your team or what have you. What would you say that you guys on average do each day? Is it the same? Is it different? Let's see, we'll start with Matt. What do you say? They're
different, and I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, and that's probably why you go into it. But I say that knowing that without structure and habits and discipline, then your days, then you're probably not going to get to where you're trying to get to, or at least as quickly as you are. Because if anything, as an athlete, everybody, we learn that you do the routine, mundane, boring stuff better and better every single day, day in and day out. Eventually, day after day, week after week, month after month, and then the years stack, and all of a sudden, you're 20 times further ahead than everybody else because you did the stuff nobody wanted to do every day. Right. So I like to start my day the same way. And for me, it's just I wake up early, I spend some time quiet, and then I have this routine of I drink 30 ounces of water. I have this apple cider vinegar, turmeric, cayenne pepper, Himalayan salt, and cinnamon shot. I drink
Okay.
that all because I've read a ton about gut health, and that's supposed to be good for your gut. And also, it's terrible. And I like to get something bad out of the way. I hate drinking water first because I just want coffee.
Yeah.
I usually have pretty sleepless nights with the 3-month-old, and I don't like the taste of that shot. I never want to do it. So that's like 2 big wins that I start my day with. And I've already kind of like centered myself through that time, and I'll just have some coffee, quiet time, usually praise music, and then the kids come down. I spend some time with them, and then from the business side, I like to try and keep 3 to 5 things on during the day that I need to accomplish on a business side. That if I say I do these things, I win the day, and my business is moving forward. If I win, if I do them all, I win. If I don't do them all, I lose. As an athlete, that resonates with me, and it's a very, very simple structure. I do 5 things by noon. My day's won, and I get the rest of the day to mess around if I want to. You know, people often think like, as an entrepreneur, you got to just grind 27 hours a day. It's kind of like, well, if you can do what you need to do, and if that's 5 things a day and they're big things, and you can accomplish them by 10 o'clock, then take the rest of the day to enjoy and go on and accomplish 5 more things the next day and 5 more things. I mean, you're going to be way ahead of everybody else. I promise you, because so many people get distracted by a flood of emails or whatever, social media, whatever they need to, whatever the distraction du jour is. So that's for me. That's kind of what, it's not the exact every single day, but that's how I like structure, and
that's your framework.
A framework of a day to make sure I'm winning the days and winning the weeks and winning the months. And yeah.
Get the W. Taryn, what about yourself? What's a typical day look like for you?
I start my day the same every single day. That is my journal, devotional, reading a scripture that's tied to the devotional. Those things have been consistent, even with traveling, which has been a huge shift for me, because normally it's, okay, those books are at home and then I'm traveling. So while I'm gone, it's just on pause. So since June, I've been able to make that consistent daily. So it's definitely given me a nice shift shaker. Again, I do work full time. So Monday through Friday, there's work from 8 to 5, something of that nature. And then there's a time for me to reset with some meditation, get back into my own personal business. And then, as Matt said, whatever the goals that I set out to achieve for that day, I write my list every night for the most part. If there's things that I didn't hit by the beginning of the week, I'm trying to close out the week and make sure everything's checked off. So,
gotcha. Krista, what about yourself? What's that typical day look like for you?
Yeah, so like Matt said, everything is different, but the core things that I always do is just like Tim Ferry says, take your meds, right? So meditation, exercise, diet, sleep, supplements, right? So take your meds, MEDS. So it's like, it's one of those things that I feel like people really neglect, that you cannot be your best self if you don't take time for yourself. You can't be your best self trying to be everything to everybody, and then you're nothing to yourself. So, you have to absolutely, take that time. And then also I'm big on prioritizing the most impactful things that I can do to move myself forward. That's what I always do. I always write that down in the morning. Literally about 2 to 3 things that I can do that's going to make progress towards the ultimate goal, right? So, if my goal is to like one of the biggest things that I'm working on right now is a marketing project for the firm itself. So it's like, you can run around and do a million tasks and feel busy if you want, but busy isn't productive. So just a couple different things that are like, what's actually getting me over the hump, and focus on that. And that's even how you grow to scale as well. So people always get into this whole thing on entrepreneurship where they think that it's cute to be the hamster on the wheel, or I do all the things. Like, no, you don't. You do absolutely nothing. You know what I'm saying? So
I love it. Busy isn't productive. That's so good. So
right.
good.
Chris is like, no, you don't. Not one single thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I was trying to think. The other question I had, and again, it kind of chimes in with probably some of the other questions I've asked before, but as far as advice, who do you guys go to for advice? Again, it could be a mentor, or you don't even have to name anyone, but I mean, kind of around that space. I mean, who would you say that you kind of look to, or what do you read, or what do you do to kind of get advice on what you're doing? We'll start with, I don't know, Chrissy.
So first is my mom. Like, my mom gives really good advice, and she's like very straightforward. I think that y'all could probably realize where I get it from. But like, she's
Listen,
like,
you're straightforward. I never would have guessed that.
Right.
This comes as a total surprise.
So she's so straightforward, and she's like, it really helps me see things as they are. And then I know, not to sound a little esoteric, but I also go to like my higher self. So like, I will sit there quietly and ask myself, what is the one thing that I can do that will get me to the next level, or get me here, or get me there, to fix this problem? And then I just wait for the answer, you know? So I don't sit in a child's pose or nothing doing it, but
Right. Okay, all right. Karen, we better start with you next.
I'm just still tripping off her saying I don't sit in child's pose. The number one person that I go to is my spiritual advisor. He definitely keeps me grounded. We work a lot on my temperament and how God created me. So I will say effectively, he knows me better than I know myself. We have a lot of similar characteristics. So I do appreciate his real world perspective, coupled by his Jesus principles, or, you know, his foundation and faith. And he definitely still gets to the bag. So it's just like a well-rounded conversation of probably looking in the mirror, like the male version of myself.
Gotcha. Okay. Matt, what about yourself?
I love the question about advice. I've learned to, I didn't used to, but I've learned to consider the source. I always remind myself, consider the source. And where I get the advice from is very dependent on what advice I'm seeking. So an example would be, I'm considering going down this path for business. Let's say, rewind a handful of years. This is a real example. I was taking the leap, leaving what I described as, top performer type sales role. Income sort of can be at my discretion. If it's the harder I work, the more, all that stuff. My mother was not, God bless her, I love her, but she's been in the same role for 40 years and is considering retirement now. She's not the right person for me to go and say, hey, should I go and do this?
Right.
I love her and I respect the heck out of her. But she voluntarily gave me advice, which is very much what happens to the people closest to you, especially when you try to push envelopes and push boundaries. People kind of project their insecurities out on you in the form of loving advice. And she told me, like, why are you doing that? You have a family. You got to be protected. You got to protect them. You have a great career right now. You're just starting out. Like, you have plenty of the world ahead of you to build it. I couldn't take her advice because what I would say to anybody seeking advice is find somebody. And again, I said it earlier, if you can find somebody. Everybody's out there on social media and in public, out on the internet today. You just got to work at it. But find somebody who's walking a path that you want to walk that might be 5, 10, 20 years ahead of you. In whatever area, personally, professionally, spiritually. Find them, seek them out, and try and understand what they've done. And I'm a big believer in modeling. I used to do it as an athlete. I would swing like Ken Griffey Jr. as an 8-year-old because he had the best swing in the game. What I was doing was modeling a better version of what I was trying to be. And you do the same thing when you seek advice. Find people who are walking a path that you see yourself walking. Not to say you'll be exactly that person, but understand, success leaves clues. Understand what they did to get there and go ahead and don't reinvent that wheel. Go ahead and do it. Like they were successful doing it. You might have to put your own twist on it, but man, don't try and say they did it this way, but I'm going to go that way.
Well, I tell you what, you guys, with these nuggets, success leaves clues.
Yeah.
Good one. I like that.
It's good. I love it. It's not my own. I'm not that smart, but I definitely digested it and use it now.
I like that a lot. For some of these, student athletes or even former student athletes who are looking at starting, a business, side gig, wherever you want to call it, from a marketing standpoint, what would you tell them? What's a good way to either market your service and or product? Because I'm sure that's got to be a question they have to be asking or thinking about. Do you guys have any ideas as far as what would be good for some of these folks? Or you start. I'm trying to think of rotation. We go with Chrissy.
So like the first thing that you need to do, which is super cheap, everybody thinks to do, is social media. But what people mess up with social media is like, perfect example, if I walked in and I'm like, rates are low, nobody cares. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter. So like, because they are, right? They're low everywhere. So it's like, you need to learn how to actually, you got to get really good at storytelling, right? So because it's like when you storytell, that's how you're actually showing what value that you can provide to the customer. Understanding the metrics of social media. About 90% of the time, the stat is about before somebody buys, they literally follow you probably within a couple days before they're looking to actually purchase from you, right? Most people don't look, 75% of people don't look further than the first person that they talk to unless that person screws it up. So understand that. And then going back to Matt's point, I think that when you're looking at business in general, this isn't just marketing. Look at what works, right? So it's like, I'm a very practical person. Like, people get off right now on trying to reinvent wheels and disrupt industries. But truth be told, like, the most money is made on literally perfecting wheels, not reinventing wheels. So it's like, it's like, is mail new, but did FedEx perfect it? Yeah, they perfected mail. So stop acting like you have to make something out of thin air in order to be successful,
Yeah, that makes sense. I like
Chrissy,
it.
I really like you. I've never met you before, but I feel like wherever you're located, if I'm in that city, we gotta have a drink. No, I remember, we gotta have coffee or tea.
Chrissy, get me hyped up, boy. Like, I can go play the ball right now with my bad knees. What is up? Perfected well. Taryn, what about yourself? What, as far as marketing or anything of that nature?
Finding your voice, getting clear on what your objective is, and definitely making sure that you are solving a problem. Don't create a business just to create a business. Create a business that is going to solve somebody else's problem. Otherwise, you will not have a business, because you will not have any sales or any customers, or you won't be selling any products. So definitely doing those things in terms of the sales marketing aspect. And going back to your voice, what is your platform? You might be better served on LinkedIn than Instagram, or you might be better served on Facebook than Twitter. That all is going to coincide to whatever problem you're solving, where your audience is, and your voice.
Yeah. Matt, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think these ladies nailed it. Facts tell, stories sell, as Chrissy was saying. I really believe that you've got to get comfortable in front of a screen, and if you're not, you're going to get passed by somebody who is. And we just live in a video communication, social media, highlight reel day of age. And if you can't figure out how to get in that and win in that, then somebody else is going to win. I would say, like Taryn, you were saying, find where your customers are first. If they're on LinkedIn, if they're on Instagram, if they're on TikTok, figure out where your customers are from the problem you're solving, and then live there. And then I would say first, obviously social, if you're not marketing on social, you're not living on social, then you're not going to be found. People aren't going to find. That's just how it is. You just have to get you can't say, I don't do the social thing. Like, well, okay, you don't have an interest in growing that. You don't. But I think that you have to first and foremost live your brand first. Like Sean Whalen is a great example. If you guys don't follow him. Lions Not Sheep. He says some of the stuff that you think, a lot of the stuff you think, and he says some things you don't even think, but wish you did think. A lot of the time, he's very out. But that's his brand. His brand is a lion, not sheep, and he lives his brand first and foremost. Which leads me to kind of the best way to market, hopefully for cheap, is affiliate type marketing. He's kind of a third party or an outside party that leads people to his brand. Right? People love Sean Whalen. They're like, this guy, I love this guy, what he stands for, blah, blah, blah. Oh, he got this Lion Not Sheep product. Yeah, that's me too. And that's how people buy. If you aren't that brand, find somebody who is your brand and strike a deal of some kind with them. Because if people follow them, they say, yeah, I am I am like Chrissy. I love what Chrissy stands for. Oh, Chrissy does real estate. I should learn about Chrissy's real estate because
yeah,
I should be into it too. So affiliate marketing, but it doesn't work if you don't have a good brand and a good structure first. Because if people come and find you and they were like, I liked what Chrissy was stood for, but now I come to see the business and I don't actually relay, it's a house of cards, right? So you have to first and foremost live your life the way that your brand should represent itself in the marketplace, and then find other people as affiliates to drive that traffic to you.
No, that's good. That's real good. You know, going backwards a little bit when we were talking about habits, and I just jotted this down. So yes, you know, you have good, healthy habits as far as entrepreneurship. How did you develop those habits? I mean, at what point did you say, okay, this is a good rhythm for this habit, this is working? I mean, what happened before that? And how did you kind of transition to good or better habits for your business? We will go with Taryn first.
I adapted habits from my personal life. One thing that I did, I took about 6 months off of my full-time job. And I realized that I was so much more productive during those 6 months because I was able to control my time. I didn't really have to work within like that 9 to 5 schedule. But I also realized that having a set schedule for my business, whatever it may be, is the schedule that I need to abide by. Otherwise, I can get caught up in the things. Oh, well, let's go for lunch. Let's do this. Let's do that. And I had to kind of reel it back in and say, no, like if I can just take this same core hour principle and apply it to my business, no matter what I'm doing, then I can maximize my level of effort and be the most effective.
Gotcha. Chrissy, what about you?
Yeah, so my dad used to tell me, and God rest his soul, but he used to say if you could, so my dad used to make me like lay floors for Happy Meals, guys. So lay floors, like flooring and tile, you own a flooring company for
Happy Meals.
For Happy Meals. So I guess I was undervaluing myself, but anyway,
right.
But he used to say if you can, pick up the phone for somebody else, you could pick up the phone for yourself. And I think like to a degree, people get into entrepreneurship because they're like, I hired myself. I'm nobody's boss, blah, blah, blah. But truth be told, it's like the customer is your boss. You need to be available during vendor hours. You need to be available for clients. You can't be having a snooze fest. So at that point, it's just really about structuring yourself similar to if you were at your job, but actually having enough self-love to actually show up for yourself, because you could love an employer enough to show up for them. So why can't you love yourself enough to show up for you? And just ask yourself that.
Facts. Matt, what about you?
I mean, as an athlete, I'm blessed to be able to by just default learn healthy habits of discipline and structure and consistency. So I've just carried that. I think I'm wired that way too, as just a gift of mine, is just to be able to be very disciplined. So the habits, though, that I've created today, the routines, are really a result of just learning from people who have been there, done that. I mean, I remember reading a book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It profiles like the late 1800s, early 1900s for like 20 or 30 years or something, dozens of the richest families of the world at the time, the Rockefellers. I mean, like big money back in the day. And I remember reading it, thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, this guy sounds like the modern day influencers, like get up early, meditate, visualize, journal, see your goals, and like sit and emotionally live into the future version of you. All this stuff he's saying that these people 100+ years ago did, and that was like what he distilled from the conversations and tracking them for literally decades. Wow. And I'm like, if he's saying they did it, and the modern day influencers are literally echoing the same thing, well, who's the idiot for not trying it? Like, all right, I'm skeptical and stay on the sidelines, or I could be like, well, there's got to be something to it. So a lot of like the morning routines, the habits, those are a result of reading what the most, like I said earlier, modeling what the most successful people in our time have done, and then just being like, shoot, it worked for them. I can't not try it. So, and obviously, there's a reason it works, because I've tried it and my life has changed in a lot of ways. So I would recommend Yeah, trying that's where it came from for me. Those are my habits.
Awesome.
Can I add another money habit that I think
No,
is
Chrissy, you can't. You can't.
Time's up.
Yeah, we're cutting you off, Chrissy. No, go ahead.
No, like super quick though. Literally cut whatever your check is in half, whatever you get, literally cut it in half and put it in a second account. Because the worst thing you want to do, we call it in real estate commission breath, is basically when you're at desperation of trying to make a deal happen that doesn't make any sense just because you're broke. So, you know.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. No, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Is Daniel coming? She coming back? Are we almost done?
Yeah, I think it's like the Grammys or what when your speech is on.
Yes,
Yeah, the music. Is the music?
We are out of time. We are
Yeah.
out of time. But I mean, we could have gone on the rest of the day with this conversation. It was so good. So I want to thank each of you guys for being here with us. We do have to move to our next session and keep the goodness going, but we really appreciate all of you guys being here.